everybody. Woo! It's debrief day. Can you see me? Can you see me? Can you see me? You can see me. Yay! Hi, everybody. Happy coaching day. Happy debrief day. Happy whatever we call this day. Q&A day. I'm so happy to see you. Happy Thursday. You'll be real proud of me. I haven't gotten out of my pajamas yet. I slept in this. So I got all dressed up for you. I don't put on a show. I really don't. And hopefully what that means for you is that you don't put on a show either. Maybe you're wearing what you slept in. I do. I have sleeves. It was actually cold here. It is drizzling outside. It is legit not warm. In Los Angeles, in Southern California, we call this June gloom. My best friend in Washington, D.C. is coming out to visit me. A lot of you know her. She used to be on CNN all the time. Her name is Kirsten Powers, and she's coming to see me in 2 weeks, which I'm really excited about because I haven't seen her in a long time. She was supposed to come and stay with me in April, and then shit hit the fan, right? So she's coming to see me, and she's like, save up all your good weather. And I'm like, dude, you have better weather in DC right now than we have. At least you've got some warmth and a little bit of humidity. I'm like, get ready for some clouds. It always sucks when you have people in from out of town and they're all excited to come to LA for the weather, and you're like, I don't have weather. I'm excited to see her, but I got shitty weather for her. So anyway, I hope wherever you are today, it's yeah, that's what she said. She's like, well, we have warmth, but it's humidity. And because I used to work in DC. I think I told you that. I used to work in DC and in Alexandria, Virginia. I worked 3 weeks a month in San Francisco and then 1 week a month in DC for 3 years when I was a corporate coach. And so I was constantly going from like drizzly, rainy San Francisco to humid or snowy or windy or whatever DC. It was always extremes, you know. So I kind of like living in LA because we're kind of even keeled, you know what I mean? But I love DC. Oh my God, some of the best meals of my life. I also love DC people. DC people are a little intense and very serious and largely politically minded, but they're so smart and they're outgoing and they're fun, and I really miss my DC days. So if you are there in Virginia or in DC, you're in one of my favorite parts of the country. And it was it Georgetown cupcakes? Am I remembering that right? You know, I have a cupcake donut fetish thing, you know? So I think it was Georgetown cupcakes. And then I found out that they would deliver to my hotel that I stayed in every time I was in DC. So that was dangerous. I think I gained like 5 pounds a trip. Anyway, it's great to see you. Has it broken out, Serene and Redondo? Okay, we are locked. I mean, it is drizzling, so I'm crossing my fingers. This is not good for my cannabis plants. I do not want drizzly days, which will put mold on my cannabis plants and prevent my flowers from coming, so I don't really want this today. How did I meet Kirsten? That's a great question. We had been mutually in admiration of each other and the work that we were doing. And so I reached out to her, and then she reached back, and we just became instant friends. So it was through our professional work that we met. And I've been lucky enough to meet, you know, a lot of people in different sectors and entertainment and stuff through the work that I do, but I haven't really bonded like that with any of the other people I've met through this work like that. But she's something else. She's pretty incredible. Rochelle's like, just go here. That's right. Do I need a TP canopy over it? Tripod style for the plant? Okay, I will look into that. But yeah, she and I talk 2 and 3 times a day. We have a really close relationship, so she's a good human. All right, so we have a lot to cover today. I want to thank you for being here. I've got all of your questions. I'm going to go one by one. I'm going to do as much as I can in the hour. So we're going to go till 10 after the hour, because we're starting now, and I want to give you the solid hour. And then anything I can't get to live in this hour, I will record for you in an audio. So anything we don't get to in the hour will be in a follow-up audio as per usual. This is from Etsy. If I'm wearing clothing, it's from Etsy or Amazon. Because the one thing you have to know about me is I don't like clothes. I don't like to buy them. I don't like to wash them. I don't like to fold them. I don't like to wear them. I don't think I had a lot of lifetimes where I was fully dressed. So I always tell Dave, do you know how lucky you are to be married to me? I don't remember the last time I bought a pair of shoes. And I don't remember the last time I bought a dress. I don't remember the last time I bought a bra. I don't remember the last time I bought almost anything clothing-wise. But I do have a jewelry problem. I was like, yeah, but you're not that cheap because you have a jewelry problem. But I hate clothes. Anyway, this is the best sweatshirt ever. It's really old. You know when your sweatshirts get all the nubbins on them? I call them nubbins. What do you call this? When you've worn it to death and it's covered in the nubs. Anyway, it's got all kinds of nubbins. And it's my favorite sweatshirt. I don't even buy underwear. I have my underwear. I don't like to change the style, you know what I mean? Like I have a certain brand of thong that I like. I have a certain brand of non-thongs that I like. I wear them when I have to, right? Oh, is it called piling or pilling? I call it nubbins. Anyway, see, this is why we are friends, because you guys are not really clothing people either, but you'll buy a damn crystal, won't you? And I will too. So I will save my $50 on my pair of shoes and I will buy myself a crystal. Okay. This wasn't part of our coaching for today. But here we go. Yeah, I don't like to do laundry. I do it. I'll tell you something. I'll wear my clothes like 5 or 6 times before I wash them because I smell okay. So if you ever hang out with me and you're waiting for me to be the fanciest person in the room, it ain't gonna happen. I'll be wearing a dress I probably wore 100 times before because I don't like to buy clothes. Okay, let me dive right in. So Alexis asked me to please make some announcements. Are you ready? Are you ready for your announcements? This is from Alexis. The coaching hashtag is always the first 3 letters of the month plus coaching. So if you didn't ask a question this time and you want to next month, this is how to get in the game. Okay? The coaching hashtag is always the first 3 letters of the month plus coaching. Next month's hashtag will be JUL coaching. August's hashtag will be AUG coaching. Yeah, see, Alexis doesn't like clothes. This is why it's fun to go to the gem shows with Brooklyn and Alexis, because they're on the same planet with me, and so we just bring 3 outfits. We just rotate them all. We pretend like it's not the same 3 outfits. Okay, so JUL coaching for July, AUG coaching for August. That formula does not change. So if you are looking for a place to ask your questions, that's how you're going to find the post. Does that make sense? It's Tara's last month. We'll miss you, Tara. But we'll be here if you ever want to come back. And you're starting a new journey, and that's exciting, so we're happy for you. Okay, the deadline for questions, you ready, is always the day before the debrief session is scheduled. The deadline to ask your questions is the day before the debrief is scheduled. We try to answer any questions in the group that we see, but posting the question by the deadline is the only way to be sure that your question is going to get answered. And then the monthly hashtag and deadline date is always posted and pinned in the announcements of the group during the first week of the month. Always look at the announcements. And I will tell you this, if you ask a question, I answer it. The only time I don't answer is sometimes you guys are sneaky, you're a little cheeky, and sometimes you ask 9 questions instead of one question. So, because I'm trying to get to everybody. So if I have time and you ask 9 questions, I will try to answer all 9 of your questions. If I don't and you ask 9 questions, I'm going to answer your first question. I can see you, Martha Rena. Okay. It's so exciting when you figure out what you want to focus on. You know what I mean? And then I celebrate that for you guys too. I really do. Okay, so let's dive right in. June content. So first question's coming in from Riley. She says, quantum leap versus clairvoyance versus dreaming. You ready? No, Cecilia, you have a question in here. She says she's been missing the post, but you have a question in here. Maybe your higher self asked it, but you didn't miss it. It's in here. Okay. All right, so I will leave Alexis to answer some of your questions in the feed while I dive right in so that we can get to it. She says, I have Neptune Sag in the 12th house, and it's incredibly easy for me to vision and dream alternate outcomes to situations and see very random things. I would be so grateful for your guidance on the difference between these 3 things, quantum leap versus clairvoyance versus dreaming. And how best to intend or guide which one I experience the most. I'm interested in developing my clairvoyance, but sometimes the quantum leaps bring me to scary or disturbing scenarios that shake me. Okay. It is a very great question. What I'm going to tell you is this, because it's a long answer to your question, and it's the entire focus of July. What you just asked, Riley. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna tell you, give me a week. Because the subject of dreamtime work, lucid dreaming versus astral travel versus, I don't use the term quantum leap, I'll tell you that, but I think you're talking about interdimensional travel. That's just not a term in my lexicon for describing these things. It is the whole focus of our July work. So stay tuned and hang on, because it's literally all we're doing. Next month in Soul Shift, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, next month in Soul Shift, our guide is Morpheus, who's the Greek god of dreams. And we're going to be working with Morpheus as our guide for our journey, and we're going to be talking about all of this dream time work. It's the first time, actually, in the history of my online programs that we're taking a whole month for dreams. But it's so important because you do half your soul work when you're asleep in your human lifetime. And we're going to talk about, I sometimes I have a different perspective on things than other people, which is why I always tell you, I share what I know, what I do. If it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, leave it and move on to something else that does resonate. But you literally do half your soul work in that dreamtime state. It's sacred. It is the well. When you close your eyes, I love sleeping. And the reason I love sleeping, I truly love it. And the reason I love sleeping, I get excited to go to sleep. I get excited when I'm in that state where I'm almost asleep, and I love being asleep. And the reason is I feel like it nourishes me. Now, sometimes the dreams are overwhelming. Sometimes the work is overwhelming. I do think that you have to prepare for sleep, create ceremony out of sleep, set an intention for your dreamtime experiences. So I'm going to talk to you about all of that next month, because we just haven't really talked about it before, and the timing seems really good. It's such an important phase. A lot of people are sleeping more than usual right now, and they've been coming to me and asking me, why am I sleeping all the time? In fact, even Kirsten and I were talking about this, because she's been sleeping a lot. More than usual. But again, and my response to her is the same as my response to you. It's where you do a lot of the bulk of your spiritual work. And what's nice is the spirit guides don't have to work so hard. During your waking hours, the spirit guides are constantly trying to get to you, communicate with you. They're having to work through all of your filters. They're having to compete with what your boss is talking about, what your partner's talking about, what your kids need. In dreamtime, they got you all to themselves. They're not competing with your kids. They're not competing with your boss. They're not competing with your partner. Everybody shuts the hell up because you have to. And so they're not competing with your monkey mind or your mouth that doesn't stop, right? So Anyway, we're going to talk about all of this next month. So stay tuned with me, Riley, because we will get into that. And we'll talk a little bit about astrological placements too and how they impact your experience of sleep as well. Sometimes you need more protection during your dream time experiences. So, and we can talk about protocols too. Okay. Kellyanne Troop, I know this might be a little early, but I would like to ask what clair ability would cover the ability to touch or see an object or picture and be able to see a past life or a moment in time. It's a great question. The most detailed experience she had when she was little was at a Holocaust museum. Isn't this interesting? Have you been to a Holocaust museum? They're intensely moving. We took our kids. Dave's Jewish, so in my opinion, it was necessary for my children to know what happened. I think everybody should, but I think if you're Jewish, you should know what happened in the Holocaust. And so we took our kids in LA. They still talk about it. It was a really impactful experience. So she said that there was a gypsy wagon and a black dress that she was really drawn to. And when she looked closer, and this is psychometry, when she looked closer and touched the case of the black dress, she could see herself back in time standing next to the woman who was wearing the dress. So she wasn't wearing the dress. She was standing next to a woman who was wearing the dress. She says, still sometimes to this day I think of that experience. Now I believed I've seen a past life, although I don't think I was a part of the horrors of the concentration camps. I've learned and felt into my ancestors that I've come from some Irish gypsy folks. So my question is, what clair ability would this fall under, and how can I cultivate it but also protect myself from attachments? So those who are clairsentient tend to be especially gifted at psychometry, which is this ability to touch, hold a wedding ring of someone and, be able to see into their relationship, or touch a dress from a period and be able to connect to it. I've had a lot of experiences. For me, it happens a lot in Europe, more than it does here, because you're just surrounded by history. So I've had these experiences of being in Westminster Abbey, for example. And the most powerful experience that I've ever heard of around this was actually, and you can imagine that this is what my life is like, but like when I go places and people find out who I am, they always want to tell me a story like, oh my God, you'll believe me when I tell you this kind of thing. And then people tell me these stories. So I've heard these really interesting stories over the years. So I was at a Seder, a high holiday, a dinner for Passover. And this woman came up to me and she's like, I have a story for you, right? And I've told this story a couple times, so you may have heard it before. But she was in, I think it was Spain. He was in Madrid, actually. And she was at a cathedral. And she said, Athena, I was in the cathedral. I was leaving the cathedral. I'm walking down the stairs. And I go to touch the handrail. And she said, as soon as I touch the handrail, I look around and everything I'm looking at changes. And I look down and my clothing changes. Now I'm in a dress. It looks like it's from the 1700s or 1800s. And then she's like, I took my hand off the handrail and then I'm back. And so she's like, so then I put my hand on the handrail again to test it, and it all switches back to, and then she's like, I take my hand off the handrail and I'm back, right? So that is that particular gift. And it tends to be people who are clairvoyant and clairsentient, that they can see and feel, right? Now, I need to figure out which church it is, which cathedral it is. I really do. I really do, especially because I'm hoping to be in Italy next year, or in Spain next year, so I need to find out where it is so I can go and experience it for myself. Right? So in this particular case, what you're talking about, that's what it is for me. It's clairsentience. It's the ability to clearly feel. And remember that spaces and clothing and jewelry, especially if someone wore the jewelry a lot, have an intense frequency and vibration attached to them. And it is something that you can pick up and read, right? Now, it's an interesting question, because I thought I saw a question or a comment in the feed about this being a violation of some of the things we were talking about yesterday. If somebody wants you to touch something and read it for them, then they're giving you permission. If this happens to you and you're out and about somewhere and you just happen to touch something and it shifts like that, I think it's speaking to you, or it wouldn't happen. I think it's a message for you. So I think the only time this is a violation is if you start touching people's things, and you know what I mean? Like if you came up to me and started touching my sweatshirt and didn't ask, I mean, then I'd be like, what you doing? You want to touch my nubbins? Then you're in violation, right? But I think if you're just in a museum and you touch something and you fall back in time, or you fall into a portal of some kind, I don't think you're violating any rules or procedures, right? What if you feel an attachment to the land and it's not good? Depends where you are, right? There's the land that I live on in this particular part of Southern California is sacred, and it was a lot of parts of it were just desecrated during the settling of it, and there were a lot of disputes over who owned the land between the Mexican family, who really had the rightful right to own this land, and then the other factors and families who were coming in and trying to take it. And you can tell in this land that there was this push-pull. You can feel it in the land, right? So, and then you work to heal, to Lorian's point, right? Okay, so that's from Riley, and then we talked about Kellyanne's question about the clairsentience and the psychometry. Kiva Casada asked, question regarding clair gifts and receiving messages from spirit guides. Do we have to formally call them in to receive their messages? Nope. I've always been under the assumption that unless I called them in, whatever I was seeing or hearing was my personal mind chatter or my imagination. After listening to the first session, though, it seems I might be blending the two. Your guidance is much appreciated. So here's my 2 cents. And again, some of the things that we're talking about, in my opinion, there aren't even really hard and fast rules around this, right? There's just practice, and there's you learning what works for you. In my experience, if you want their help, it's good to ask for it. Spirit guides, come in here now, right? Mama's having a moment. Then they will, it's like they will intervene. But there's constant communication. I want you to think about the spirit world as almost like the entire, like all of the radio frequencies. Like there's all that, when you go and turn on your car and you turn on FM radio, right? There's so many different channels and frequencies and stations that you can tune into, and then you kind of dial to figure out which one you want to listen to, and then you can change it if you get tired of it. There's that much chatter going on from the spirit world. And your job is just to, I think I want to listen to 99.4 or 106.2 or whatever, and kind of tuning the stations, right? You are in a big universe. And that's why spiritual work and clearing and protection is really important, because, your thoughts can lead you certain places, people can lead you certain places, people can come in and open portals to different dimensions and different frequencies, even mortals, right? All of a sudden you meet a new person, and then all of a sudden you start hearing this different chatter around you. Like everything affects your frequencies, right? So that's right. So if you want help, to Jessica's point, you have to ask them for help. They're not going to just come in and intervene and start fixing your life. But being around you and communicating with you, it's all the time. And the more you learn to, like, sometimes I can literally see my spirit guides trying to get me quiet. Because sometimes life gets too busy and you're distracted. And so I can see them sometimes in my life, like starting to move, like they'll even move appointments and move meetings and move, like, to try and create space. And I can kind of tell when they're doing it, and I'm always like, I need to listen more. But that radio is always going. The question is, are you listening? Not, are they speaking to you? Right? It's a good question. From MJ, she said, Athena, you discussed in our Crystal Masterclass and in POP that if your energy is low or off, you should not be using a pendulum. And my Reiki teacher also stated that if my energy is emotional or negative, I should not offer Reiki, and that I need to step back and rebalance. My question is this also true for card readings and guided messages? Can you be upset one moment and pull cards for someone? It's a great question, right? Is this something we should be watching out for when agreeing to receive energy from another person? I think so. I mean, it's a couple things on this. I actually think ceremony is an antidote to sadness and to frustration and to anxiety. So when people ask me, oh, I had a really hard day, should I not come to full moon? Or, oh, I had a really hard day, should I not come to class? My answer is always, this is exactly when you need full moon. This is exactly when you need class. This is exactly when you need to show up to a coaching session, because, and I know some of you know this, but I want to remind you of it again. I had a really interesting conversation with one of my other friends that I don't talk to. I talk to Kirsten every day, but this other friend I don't only talk to about once a month. But the conversations are just as deep and juicy. We're just really busy, and so it's hard to find time. But we had a conversation this week about transmissions and how she does, like I do, understand this idea that we can be talking. So right now I'm talking to you about energy and transmissions of language and energy being off and should you come to ceremony and all of that. But there's another conversation going on, right? So, and it's intentional, right? My conversations with you are always multidimensional, meaning there's the thing I'm actually talking about, and then there might actually be something else that you're receiving that has nothing to do with this. That's what I call a transmission, where there's multiple levels of communication. And this is why, so some of you have even asked, like, do people join Soul Shift but not join the Facebook group? Yes. There are people who join Soul Shift and never attend class, because when they're here in the container, they start getting transmissions. It opens a doorway for them, and they're not trying to be disrespectful, but they're not really here for what I'm teaching. Do you know what I mean? So I tell you this just because sometimes that's not how a lot of things work, and so it can be very foreign to people, like, whoa, there's something else going on here. But it's happening for me too. While I'm in the space with you, there's this this like regular conversation that's happening, and then there's what I call the meta conversation. There's a conversation outside the conversation, right? That to me really truly is the essence of magic. You can give a voice to that. That's where automatic writing and stuff, like, putting your hand down and just letting it go while you're talking or doing something else, so that you can kind of start to realize that you're always having these multiple levels of communication, right? And yeah, there's code in my voice and there's code when I look at you. And some people have code other ways too. Like there are healers who have code in their hand. Do you know what I mean? So when they touch you, it's like super zingy, right? And so it happens in all different ways. It can come through your voice, it can come through your touch, it can come through your scent, right? The pheromones that you exude can exchange code. Certain people are drawn to it, other people are not, right? That stuff happens too. So, and the reason I'm telling you all of this is, when you feel off, that's only one of your layers of expression. So you might think, well, I'm not going to do the work. That doesn't account for the other ways that you express, right? So maybe you think you are off, but there's another you operating. So in a perfect world, you wouldn't do channeling when you're sad or when you're angry or when you're overwhelmed. At the same time, that's the conscious conversation that you're aware of. There's other conversations happening, and you may be very well prepared for those other conversations, but you're just not aware of it. Does that make sense? I was kind of like toying with, how do I explain this? Because it's kind of complex, but you only know what you know. You're aware of what you're aware of. And if there's other levels or layers of expression and communication and healing happening, you may not fully be aware of what's operating there to be able to even assess whether you're on or off. Yeah. I love this, and I love seeing your comments in the feed too. I'm glad you're here too, Denise. Welcome in. Your timing is great. Okay. So she said, is it just a matter of smudging or actually taking a step back and saying, I need an hour or a day to ground myself because I'm off? this is the other thing I wanted to say to you, MJ, in regards to your question, and then to you as a broader community. And I wish I had learned this when I was a little bit younger. Now I know it and I use it, but when I was younger, I was hesitant. It is always okay to say, I need a little more time. I'm overwhelmed. This is too much for me. I need a break. It is always okay to say that. It's okay to say it at work. It's okay to say it in your relationship. It's okay to say it in your friendships. It's okay to say it with your kids. In fact, I think I'm doing my kids a favor when I say, you know what, you guys, I love you. I need a few minutes. Because what I'm teaching them when I do that is it's okay for them to say, you know what, I need a minute. I need a break. I know I was going to read for you today. I need a day, right? Even with you guys, after my friend died, I kept crying at night. And so it was like, you know what? We'll pick up Ovid this week. I feel much better this week, by the way, right? Like there's been a lot of a shift of energy. I couldn't sit and read. It just wasn't happening. I was grieving, right? It's always okay to say, I need a minute. This is hard. I'm overwhelmed. I'll be with you as soon as I can. Because that models self-care for others, right? And I mean, you know, my team knows that. I've seen Alexa say she needs a break, or she needs, you know, she needs this or needs that. I've seen Claire do it. I've seen my team do it, because it's all about sustainability. In life, your goal should be to do what you're doing for a long time. But you can't do what you're doing for a long time if you build an unsustainable model that depresses or depletes you. So sometimes it's better to say, I need a break here, and be able to keep going for longer than just pushing through and then finally one day you just melt down and you can't do it anymore. Right? So anyway, I just wanted to say, it's not even totally in response to your question, MJ, because I think ultimately it's an internal decision that you have to make about when, whether, and how you're ready for ceremony, readings, etc. But it is always okay to say, I need a minute. Because other people instantly go, wow, you know what? Thank you for doing that. Because now when I need a minute, I'm not going to feel guilty saying it. Right? And Alexis is saying it's something it's taken her a long time to learn how to do. But I'll tell you something. The right people in your life will actually respect you more when you do it. They will respect you more when you do it. Asta said, I don't know the time of my birth, and it's not on the birth certificate I recently received from the state because my original was lost years ago. Ask family members when you were born. Somebody knows. Do you know how I would know when I was born, even if there was no time on my birth certificate? Because there's a story, and everybody's told it 100 times. It's a dumb story. It's about Hawaii 5-0. Do you remember Hawaii 5-0? Because if you do, we ain't so young anymore. You know what I mean? Hawaii 5-0. I was born on the commercial break because the doctor was watching the episode and he didn't want to miss the episode. And my mom, I was half out. And my mom was screaming, and the doctor finally came in because it was a commercial break of Hawaii 5-0. So even if nobody knew, there is a story about the commercial break. You get commercials every 15 minutes, right? So I could have said, okay, so it was Hawaii 5-0 on August 9th, 1973 was playing between 11 a.m. and 12 noon. And the commercial breaks would have been at 11:15, 11:30, or 11:45. I would be able to narrow it down to like one of three options, right? So anyway, ask in your family, because I bet you there's a story about your birth, which would at least help you isolate if it's morning, afternoon, or evening, which will get you closer to understanding what your proper ascendant sign is. Susan and I share a birthday, isn't that cool? Yeah, that's my birth story. Okay. It's like I told you, it's not a great birth story, but it is what it is. My doctor had his priorities, a little misaligned there, if you ask me. Isn't that funny? And Scout's dad and I share a birthday. Totally funny. All right, Elder Council, Delidia, Cashner Allen. Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are well and safe. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. She said, about the Akashic Library, can you visit as often as you would like? In my experience, yes. Can you begin a library visit before you fall asleep and basically spend the night in the library? I've never done that. I don't know that you can't. Intuitively, I feel like you can do what you want in the record as long as you're respectful in your protocol, but I don't know. I haven't done it. And then she said, can I ask to see more than one lifetime or sequence of events in one session? Sure. And then, how is the Akashic Library different from a past life regression session? She said, that's more than one question. I have a lot of work to do, I think. They're all kind of related, Delidia, so that's why I am kind of lumping them all together. So here's what I'm going to tell you. We as humans really want there to be like rules for things. Welcome to the Akashic Records, everyone. Here are the 5 rules you need to know. Like I'm a tour guide, right? When we prepare to enter the Akashic Records, here are the 5 words that you should say. Please prepare an intention. After you leave the records, please close the records, right? There really isn't. And in my experience, the Akashic Records is sort of like a computer that's sitting in the other room. It's running all the time. It doesn't have to be updated because it includes all past information, all current information, all future information. So it never has to be updated. And you can go in and go out. But when you go in, you're opening the record, and when you come out, you're closing the record, and you have to be, I have noticed there's a protocol there, just to be considerate and make sure that you do that part of the protocol. That's the only thing that to me has seemed serious about the Akashic Record, is that when you go in, you're opening it, so you need to acknowledge that there's an opening, and I try to make ceremony of that like we did in our journey. And you need to close it when you leave, because it's something of a portal, right? Other than that, wisdom is there. One thing I have noticed is sometimes we want access to more than we're ready for. That's my only cautionary note to you. When I really first started doing this work, I wanted to just throw open the gates and have access to everything. And now in hindsight, I realize how really unprepared I was. The universe did like a stage gating thing with me, and I'm not even all the way through what I'm going to learn in this life, right? But it did this really interesting stage gating, and if it had shown me some of the things it's shown me in the last 5 years, if it had shown me all of that in my 20s, I didn't have a container for it. I didn't have a what we call in education as teachers, we call them a schema, right? A schema is, so if I want to teach you about something that you're completely unfamiliar with as a teacher, right? What I'm trained to do as a teacher, what I used to train other teachers to do, is I show you something like it, that you would be familiar with, which is called your schema. So I could say, I'm going to teach you about this new architectural design. It's kind of like an apartment. And as soon as I say that, as a student, you start pulling up images of apartments. And then I know as a teacher, I can come in and teach you this new thing. And it's not going to be totally outside the realm of your understanding because you're going to have a schema. You're going to have something of a point of reference. Spirit has to give you a schema. So it needs you to have a certain amount of lived experience. This is why the 30s and the 40s, at least for me, have been my most powerful decades. I wouldn't choose to be any younger than I am today. I'm so happy to be where I am, who I am, with what I have in this moment. I would not go back and be 30 again. I would not go back and be 40 again. So because I have a frame of reference. So when something comes in now, it's not new. It's like, okay, I think I know what this is about. Versus before, I didn't have any point of reference, and so I made a lot more mistakes, right? So it's that stage gating that I think the universe does, and it's such a really cool gift. We're cuter sometimes when we're younger, but we're we're not hip to the program. So we learn to appreciate these stages, right? So I thought that was a fun question because it opened us up to, so thank you to Lydia, because it opened us up to this conversation about like, let the wisdom come as it comes. Because the universe is stage gating you for a reason. And a lot of it is so that you don't have to learn lessons the hard way. And so by making sure that you have this life schema, when they show you new things, you have something to hook it onto, right? For what it's worth, that's my perspective. Millie asked, how do you begin to heal an ancestral line you know nothing about? This is really interesting, right? Where do you begin? This is related to our last elder council where my grandmother blocked energetically that side of my family. Her pendulum is saying, or Millie's pendulum is saying she's protecting me, but that I need to do this work on my paternal grandfather's line, which is her husband, right? The problem is I know literally nothing about them. I have no clue how to dip in. She brought this to elder council, right? In my experience, you don't need to know anything about them to do the work. Truly. And here's why. This may sound, by the way, like the simplest, not great answer to your question, so forgive me, but it's coming from my heart. You are them. I mean, you know everything about them. There's nothing that you don't know about them. Your grandmother can't protect you from anything. You embody it. I never got to spend time with my dad's mom. Okay, I just didn't get a chance to, and I longed for it. You know what I mean? Because I had a really close relationship with my mom's mom, who I talk about all the time. When she came to me in ayahuasca in October, I don't know what I expected. Do you know? She didn't speak any English. My Greek is not perfect. You know, and so part of me was like, are we gonna, you know, what's it gonna, I don't know, what's it gonna be like? And it was she was me and I was her, and in this now moment we were each other. She felt like an extension of me, like a wiser, more experienced extension of me. And the way she talked about my dad to me was, we were talking about this person that we both know so well. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing foreign about it. So when you look at your line, you have to remember it's the cusping of all these relationships. It's the grandparents becoming your mom, who becomes half of you, right? It's the other grandparents who become your dad, who becomes half of you, right? So it's literally this merging of the energies, and where you think it's going to be foreign or unfamiliar, or I didn't know them, I never got to meet them. And Stephanie, if you're confused, can you do me a favor and frame it as a question? Because that way I can try to explain this to you too. Did Elder Council reinforce that? I think it did, right? Sometimes we feel disconnected if we didn't have a physical relationship with them, or we didn't get to lock eyes, or we don't, there's any kind of perceived separation, except when they, when you cross, I think that's the experience you will have. You know, here we're separate, we're on different continents, we're speaking different languages, we're in different generations, we're in different time zones, like it's all of this, it's like Tetris, right? But when we cross back over, it's like a soup. It's like you just get right back into the soup. And all time is now, and everyone is you, and you are everyone, and it's just, there's one source consciousness, and then all these different expressions of it, and there's no, so it's like we feel this sense of separation from our own timelines and lineages, but it's perceived, if that makes sense. I hope that's not too complicated, and if you do have questions about what I just said, let me know. And what I try to do with these complex things is like maybe phrase it a different way or give you a different example so that it's clear. Because I think this is a really important point. But our separation is perceived. And it is, by the way, the root of our despair. The root of anything that makes you sad in this life is based in a perception of separation or isolation, right? I'm glad it's clear, but let me know, because I'm happy to try to, I know it is kind of thick, you know what I mean? So I'm happy to try to come at it from a different perspective too. It's a great question, Millie, because obviously you can see it strikes a chord. And even me going into ayahuasca, I was like, you know, I always asked to see her because I look just like her, you know? My dad always tells me that I look just like his mom. So it's like, here I am, I'm your granddaughter, you know, I look like you, I look up to you. She was an incredible medicine person. And I always asked to connect with her, and I just thought it was going to feel so separate. I didn't realize it would feel so connected. I was really grateful for that experience. Bufnita Sakra, my mother passed 20 years ago. I haven't felt or dreamed about her since then. Can you tell me ways that I can connect with her? I'm new to all of this, or is it too late now? I'm really glad that you're here. You guys are so cute. It is not too late to connect with her. And I think I've had some interesting experiences around this, and I would actually be really, really curious to hear the perspective of some of you in the feed too. Thank you for that, Janine Gibbons. You're so kind. I would really like to know what you guys think too. Some spirits, and I guess my grandmother's an example of this, so maybe this came up for a reason. It wasn't as easy for me to make contact with her. My journey with ayahuasca in October, at 46 years old, after really wanting to connect with her in spirit for a long time since she crossed, like 30 years ago, right? Harder to reach her. Like my maternal grandmother, I feel like she's so easy to reach. So I think maybe she's one of the ones that's tougher to reach, or, right? Maybe it's not that. Do you know what I mean? Maybe she is communicating with you and it's not in a way that you expect or understand. That could be part of it too. So I think kind of setting an expectation or setting an intention for how you want to communicate with her. Could be because of time. Could be because she's off the grid, Tanya B, right? Tanya said it's possible she's met her final life. She's off the grid. She's in pure spirit, right? You know, I'd be happy for her. And Jessica said that her mom passed away 21 years ago. It's a good example too. And she never visits, but she left very abruptly and needed to integrate before she crossed. And we don't know what that process looks like, right, Jessica? It's like that could be, we could look at that and say, well, 20 years is 20 years, because in human lifetime, that's a lot. But then in spirit time, it's not the same. That could be 20 minutes in spirit time. How do we know, right? So, and true, Susan J, another great option, right? Is it possible she's back here in 3D in another human life? Of course it's possible. So it's a great question. And hopefully our responses are a source of help for you too. I'm glad you're here. Kathy Bonnell. Okay, so this maybe needs a cushion. I'm having some difficulty with being a priestess. And I'm really excited for this question, and listen up for my answer. I was excited prepping this one for you today. Athena talks frequently about soul contracts and how a priestess should be neutral. Neither good nor bad. I question then if you see something like child abuse, domestic violence, racism, and you are able to stop it, do you get involved even if the person doesn't ask for help? Am I interrupting their karma? How do I not become involved? It's like watching a man pass out and not calling an ambulance and doing everything to help him live. I'm not sure how to process this. It's a great question. I didn't feel like I needed a cushion. I appreciate that you said it. I didn't feel, you know, that it was cushiony, but I appreciate you saying it. Okay, so here are my thoughts. when I talk about neutrality, and I've actually really thought about changing words, because I think sometimes words become too loaded, and then it's just really easy to attach your own meanings to them. Do you know what I mean? Because neutrality, which I talk about all the time as a leadership principle, for me, what neutrality means is I see it as my job in my personal life, in my professional life, because of the energy streams that I carry. I see it as my job to try to withhold judgment, to stay in a place of what I call conscious curiosity. I'm curious. Because when I stay in a place of conscious curiosity, I don't get attached to outcomes. And so it helps me to be a better teacher and a better leader. I don't, when if somebody brings me a conflict, I don't immediately say, well, they're right and they're wrong, right? I listen, oh, that's interesting, right? Conscious curiosity. And what's your perspective? Okay, let me sit with that. Now, you can't live in neutrality. And we talked about this during the, and we can come back to whose karma she's talking about, Candace. The Black Lives Matter movement was an example of that, right? Where it's like, in cases like that, at least for me, I'm not going to sit in neutrality there. Racism isn't a subject where we can be neutral. I mean, for me personally, it's just not a subject where we can be neutral. We I think, are morally and ethically obligated to have a perspective on racism. And in my opinion, there's one perspective. Okay, so it's not that you don't ever make a judgment or have an opinion. I think there are cases where things can be quite cut and dry, right? Now, having said that, and Dave would tell you this drives him nuts. I listen to all news, for example. I listen to liberal news, and I listen to conservative news, and I listen to middle of the road news. And the reason I do that is, first of all, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. And second of all, I have friends and clients and people who are on all sides of the spectrum, and I want to know what they're hearing. I'm just curious. I am consciously curious. Now, when I hear things that aren't true, I don't like that, right? When you hear things that are just blatantly not true. But you're never going to find out that all I listen to is liberal media, even though I'm quite liberal as a human being. I actually listen to quite a bit of conservative news, because otherwise I don't feel educated. I feel like I'm getting one person's version of the truth. I'm not getting different people's versions of the truth. But on issues of import, right? There is right, in my opinion, and there is wrong. It is not right to take a life. It is not right to discriminate against someone on the basis of the color of their skin. Like, this is not, oh, maybe, or in certain cases. There is a right answer and there is a wrong answer to me, okay? And for me too, I will say, I can't really work with someone or follow them or learn from them if I don't know who they are. And if everything's wishy-washy, how do you even know who somebody is? This is why, by the way, I'm very candid with you guys when I tell you, I do believe in God. I do believe there's good and evil in our universe. I do. I've seen some pretty dark and scary things. I don't play over there because of how real I've seen it to be. I play right over here. And I tell people that so that you know who you're working with, so that if you want to go over there, you might want to find a different teacher, because I don't play there. It's not the work I do. If you play there, you're not going to enjoy this as much, right? I'm not saying this isn't something you can or should do. I'm just saying I don't do it. So in these places, I am not neutral. I am not neutral on issues of import. I am neutral when it comes to having two employees who are bitching at each other and going, what are you bitching about? Okay, what are you bitching about? Well, you know what? You're kind of right about that, and you are kind of right about that. And being able to go, I see where you are coming from. I also see where he is coming from, or whatever, right? This is about being balanced in your perspective, but right is right and wrong is wrong on some issues. So what I've been thinking about with regard to all of this is maybe neutrality isn't the right word for me to work with anymore in my own process. And I've been playing with words, not even, and Kathy Bennell didn't even know this, but Kathy Bennell gave me a great opportunity to to talk about it today. And one of the words I've been playing with is circumspection. Being circumspect. Not neutral. Circumspect. Which scout is not far off from where I'm going in my mind. Okay? Circumspect means looking around. I look around. If someone says this is what's happening with the coronavirus, I look at that, and then I look at this, and I look at that, 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 and then I make a decision. But I don't just go, oh, right? So circumspect, literally from the Latin, means looking all around. Isn't it interesting? So I think I'm going to change from neutrality to circumspection and see how that works better. Because I think if I say circumspect, people won't confuse me about right and wrong. Does that resonate with you guys? So thank you for the opportunity. There's no cricket, it's a bird, and he chirps 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is what I fall asleep to. This is what I wake up to. This is what's happening during class. And if you want my awesome opinion, I think he's got enemies. Because there's birds that come and sit next to him and kind of peck at him. And I think they're trying to make him stop. Okay. Andrea Solano. Only me, right? Hi, Athena. Can you share with us your thoughts on the ideal time astrologically for plant medicine, San Pedro, ayahuasca, etc.? Feels like Mercury retrograde would be a time to avoid, but I'm wondering if there are any other astrological factors to keep in mind around the lunar cycle or other planets in retrograde. This is a great question, too. Now you hear it all the time, don't you? You weren't even paying attention to it before. This is a fantastic question from you, Andrea. I'm going to tell you something. I have done plant medicine under every possible condition and had great experiences. So my only policy with plant medicine is if it's calling, I go. If it's not, I don't. And I don't think too much about, I mean, I think about it to the extent that if it's near a new moon, then I think, oh, maybe in this journey I'll see what my intention should be. Or if it's near a full moon, then I'll think like, oh yeah, you know, what am I manifesting and what are my visions? Or if it's near a seasonal change, you know, it's like what I'm visioning for the next season. But I don't specifically go, oops, Mercury is retrograde, I shouldn't work with Aya. But that, again, that's just me. So if you want to be more intentional about it and avoid certain things. With retrograde, here's what you have to remember. Retrograde, think of retrograde as a magnifying lens on that planet's energies. It's like a doubling down. It's a more explicit focus on whatever that planet represents, right? So we have more of a focus on communication. We're more apt to have challenges there because the highlights on communication during a Mercury retrograde. Same with Venus and energies around relationships and love and physicality, right? So it may become a highlight of the journey if you journey during that time when it's retrograde. But I don't think it necessarily has to shape your decision about when to do it. Is that helpful? Okay. And then next question came from Morgan. Actually, Morgan, I responded to this question in the group, so I'm going to skip over if you don't mind. Normally I wait until the session, but I read this question and I responded. So I'm going to tell you what the question is, and then if you want to see my response, and I can briefly recover it here too. He was basically asking, how much do I let people in to my process, to ceremony, to the work that I'm doing, to the how much do I let people into all of that? And what I said in response to him in the group was, I have an open door policy. My kids are welcome. I mean, the only time I don't have an open door policy is when I'm teaching, and the honest reason for that is I don't want you guys to have a bad experience. I try to minimize the excess noise. I mean, obviously Chirpy, our chirperman up there, isn't helping us today. I can't block him out because this is my life and he doesn't stop. But like my kids, if my kids were making noise right now, I'd be super upset because you're here to have a relaxing spiritual experience and you don't need to hear my kids yelling, right? So to that extent, my door is closed. They know when I'm teaching, it's holy, sacred, quiet time. But when I'm just doing my own thing, when I'm smudging, half the time Zoe's in here with me. Zoe smudges with me at least once a day. And she and her friends are allowed to come into my crystal room here. They're allowed to touch anything. I don't have a hands-off policy. My kids are very respectful. They know if they touch something, they have to put it back. You know what I mean? And they've never misplaced or broken anything since they were babies. They're so careful. They're very respectful. But they've grown up around it, right? So it depends. Some people are very secretive. Their partner doesn't know what their ceremonies look like. Their kids don't know. Nobody touchy, anything, right? And I don't have a judgment about that. You know, if people want to keep it sort of more off limits. But I have a very open, welcoming desire to, I want my kids to know what this is. I don't want them to go, oh, that's the crystal room, be quiet, or don't touch that, or whatever. It's not a museum, right? So I say share it. And bring the people you love into your process so they can be part of it too. And then if you need time, then again, it's okay to say, you know what? Tonight, I'd like to smudge on my own, just for a few minutes. I have to clear a couple things. It's been a lot. I love you. I'd like to smudge on my own. So I don't have anything in my home that my kids can't touch. I just, with my blood, I don't have rules. But they also know how careful they have to be. And in general, they don't really want to touch all the things. But if Zoe comes in and she wants to touch, she's allowed to take the smudging bowl and take it to her room and smudge. She just has to bring it back. And it has to be in exactly the same place where she put it. And now she has her own smudge in her room, so she doesn't even come and take my smudging dish anymore because she has her own supplies, right? So I respect my kids and I respect their respect of me in the space. And it's just an agreement. It's really unspoken, honestly. And you smudge after her friends leave to eliminate anything that's left. Yeah. But I smudge, honestly, you guys, I smudge almost every hour. I smudged before we started. I'll be smudging probably around sunset time again. I smudged twice since I woke up this morning. I moved some stones around in the room. Every time I move anything, I smudge. It's still a little bit fuzzy in here because of the smoke from this morning. So something's always being cleared. If you go out in my garden, I've got incense sticks in the ground. Do you do that? I just put incense sticks in the ground all around my garden so I can just randomly bring my lighter out and start torching them up, because incense sticks in the dirt are really good, right? So it's just like if you're constantly clearing, you don't really have to worry about the energy so much. Keep smudging. Cecilia, what is a good schedule or routine to have so I and others can meditate every day? The best thing to do is try to do it before you get out of bed. Or for me, it's that really sexy 20, 30 minutes before I fall asleep. That's my favorite time of day. I've told you that many times. That between that, when you get in bed and when you're like just starting to kind of nod off, That's my favorite time of day. And meditating then is just like the juice, right? And I love doing, one of my favorite meditations for that time of day is just to make it pure fantasy. You know what I mean? If I could make everything in this life exactly as I would want it in this moment, what would it look like? Where would I be right now? You know, where would this bed be? And who would be here? And what would we be doing? And what would I have? And what would it smell like? And what would I have had for dinner? What would I be having for breakfast tomorrow? And like just, you know, creating the dream life and visualizing through all of that is such a beautiful way to fall asleep. That's a fun meditation to do. Or just listen. Or my other favorite thing to do, because I have a kind of a blank wall. There's a picture in the middle of it, but it's a big wall, and I deliberately didn't clutter it because when my eyes start to go fuzzy, I can see sacred geometry on that wall every night. But it only happens for like the last 10 minutes or so before I fall asleep. But if I start to let my eyes go soft, I can start to see flower of life, and then it starts to flow into like a Sri yantra. And then I'll start to see like within the flower of life, like smaller, more micro geometries. And that's a beautiful way to fall asleep too. And if you start to let your vision fall soft and see those shapes unfolding and everything in front of you, like I could even do it here on the wall a little bit if I let my eyes go soft, then just listen. Fun things start coming when you just listen. Woo! In the new building, we're going to do some fun things with lighting, like on the walls and the ceiling. So we're going to experiment with not like over-arting it, and instead setting up some cameras or some kind of projectors that point up toward the ceiling, because we're leaving the ceiling all exposed and just painting it. And then on the walls, being able to do like a light show, so that during a retreat or during a journey, like we brew Blue Lotus tea, everybody gets a little soft, everybody's laying down on rugs, and the sacred geometry starts to unfold on the wall, and then we do breath work together. What is kind of fun, I got this on Amazon. Let me just show you. It's that thing. Oop. That white thing behind my skull. It makes like moons and stars on the ceiling. And at night I've been coming in here and just laying in the bed and meditating, and then just because it's a shifting pattern, it's like clouds with stars. Have you seen that thing on Amazon? It's actually really cool. It's LED, and it plugs in, and it doesn't take up much space. So maybe that's something to get for your bedroom and like project it onto your ceiling, and then you can kind of, especially if you're a visual person and it helps you and relaxes you, that can help you fall asleep too. Amazon. I will, when we're done here, I will get a link and I'll post it in the Facebook group. Alexis has one. Hey, Alexis, do you know what brand it is? Because you have the same one I do, I think. Alexis will link to it for you. Oh gosh, we're over time. If I didn't have things to do and a family and a clock, I swear to God, I'd keep going. And at some point, you guys would say, you know, Athena, we have to eat. We're tired. We have to go to bed. And I would be like, oh my God, what time do we start? Seriously, Candace, get it for your son. Here's the thing. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If you get one for yourself and you have kids, prepare for the argument. So Dave actually bought that for me. It arrived. Zoe unpacked it, took it to her room, and was using it. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is literally what happened. I was like, oh, this is cool. Where'd you get this? And she's like, I don't know. It came from Amazon. And I'm like, I just thought it was her birthday money. I thought it was like a gift card that she'd gotten from Amazon. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. You know, I love it. It's really pretty. And then the next day, Dave was like, hey, did this like light up thing come? I got you like this thing with stars or whatever. And I was like, wait, it wasn't like a projector thing, was it? And he's like, yeah, it makes like stars on the ceiling. I thought you'd like it for your crystal room. So I go to her and she's like, well, I don't know, it arrived and it's like totally like things that I like. So like, it just totally was mine. So it arrived and I just took it. And I was wait a minute. So he goes in her room and he's like, Zoe, I bought that for your mom. And she's like, well, too late now. It's already plugged in and it's in my room and this is where it goes. And so we ended up getting 2 of those. And then Dave was like, or Nick goes, I want one. And I was like, I absolutely draw the line here. It's not an inexpensive thing. And I was like, I'm not buying 3 of those. So she got one. I was supposed to have one. You don't get one. And so Nick does not have one. I love how Zoe's like, I don't know, it came from Amazon. we are not setting up good behaviors. Good financial discipline with Zoe. We are not setting that up right now. I really did think it was her birthday money because she got some gift cards from my mom and dad and from, Dave's extended family. So anyway, no, Nick is an Aries. So of course Nick is like, that's all right. I didn't want one anyway. Such an Aries. I didn't want it anyway. So he's like, good, because you can't have it because it's mine. No, and we actually have a rule now. The kids don't open Amazon boxes because things come. Like I ordered chocolate chips. I wanted to make chocolate chip cookies. Where did those go? Anybody seen those? Because apparently they disappeared. So we have a rule now. I unbox things or Dave unboxes things. Other than that, we don't, nothing. They sit there on the front doorstep until an adult is ready to do this. Okay, so here's how this is going to go. I'm going to pick up with Susan O'Connelly James tomorrow. And then I have questions from Stephanie Nicole, Jessica, Nicole, Grace, Tracy, Kennedy, Stephanie Kolb, and on. So there will be an audio recording for you on Monday because I'm going to finish the audio recording tomorrow, but Alexis and the team, I try to give them as much time off over the weekend as possible. So I'm going to finish the recording. They'll process it Monday morning, probably have it into your Facebook group and into the classroom by the end of the day on Monday for you. And then I saw a question about how to post questions. So, and we covered this at the beginning, but if you came in after the start, don't worry, by the way, I'm going to repeat this for you just so that you're aware of how to ask questions next time. Okay, so the hashtag, there's a hashtag in the Facebook group if you want to ask a question for these. And the hashtag is always the first 3 letters of the month. So July's is going to be JUL and then coaching. And August's hashtag is AUG coaching. September's will be SEP coaching. So what you do is you look for that hashtag, and then the deadline is the day before the session. So you had until yesterday to post in our Facebook group with the hashtag for her to collect the question and then give it to me. And then she gives me 24 hours to read through and prepare, because I take quite a bit of time with these, thinking about them in advance so that I'm not just sitting here like in the spur of the moment off the cuff. So it takes me about 24 hours to read through them and really think through them and start to formulate my responses to you. And then whatever I don't get to in the live, I do an audio follow-up. And so if I didn't get to your question today, there will be an answer for you in the follow-up. I do respond to all the questions. Yeah, I think so. Brittany said the debrief questions is in the announcements section too. Everything's in the announcements section. But if you can't find it there for any reason, then just use the hashtag and then no, and Lisa, don't worry. Here's the thing, Lisa and everybody else. There's a lot of moving parts to the work that we do. And I will tell you something, I'm going through menopause. I feel like I can't even remember my own name half the time. So it's a lot even for me. Sometimes I have to ask Alexis again, like, wait, how do they ask a question? So if I struggle sometimes, it is a challenging environment, but we do the best we can. So, and don't hesitate to ask again, or because it's, yeah, I mean, it is very important for you guys to understand how to engage. And like I said, sometimes even I am like, am not sure how to do the thing. So that's why Alexis and I made a point of responding and reminding you again. Yeah, and no one's time has been wasted. I wanted to repeat the whole thing one more time at the end, which is why I said not to worry if you weren't here at the beginning, because I wanted to repeat this one more time so that you know this for next month, how to ask the questions. And these are recorded, so you have access to these responses to your questions forever, for the rest of time. And Holden's going through male menopause. This is helpful for all of us to know. Okay, anything else I'm supposed to tell you today? Let me double check my little list of magical things to tell you about. I don't think so, but I will be offline most of the day tomorrow. I have doctor's appointments. I try to do all my doctor's appointments on one day right now, and I'm doing all my dentist appointments next week because I have to have some work done on my teeth. So, and I don't like to go back and forth. So I'm taking a medical day tomorrow, and then I have a dental day, and I think it's a week from Monday. So I won't be online that much tomorrow. Alexis will be. She will be in your Facebook group and there for you, but I will be mostly offline while I do all my regularly scheduled like annual checkups and stuff. I couldn't figure out a good time to do it because I kept postponing it because of the virus, but then it's like, if the virus is going to get worse as they're predicting in California, maybe now is a good time to go and do it. So I'm trying to get all of that out of the way. Yeah, please and thank you. These are just like normal, regular checkups and things, but I wanted to get them all done quickly so I didn't have to spread them out so much. So Steph, in the Facebook group is where the announcements are. And it's actually like at the top of the Facebook group, there's a tab that says announcements. And you can actually scroll through because we usually have a couple of announcements going at a time. So that's a good place to go and double check for that. So thank you. And so I'll be back with you in the afternoon. I think we're going to do Ovid tomorrow evening. If you want to do a little Ovid with me. So you will see me later in the day, just not earlier in the day, in case you're wondering. So have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a beautiful Friday morning. And like I said, sometime by the end of the day on Monday, the audio part 2 of this conversation will be up and posted for you. Yeah, I know. See, go do your checkups. Maybe I'm motivating you to go and do your checkups. Maybe you needed to hear that today. I love you guys. I'll see you soon.